Imagine living in your home for months, not realizing that someone else is living there too. This is the terrifying story of the man in the crawl space. It started with small, almost unnoticeable things. A Reddit user described hearing faint footsteps at night, the creak of floorboards, and even the sound of something being dragged. They brushed it off at first, telling themselves it was just the house settling, or maybe a raccoon in the attic. But then, stranger things began happening. Items around the house would disappear and then reappear in odd places. A half-empty water bottle left on the counter was gone the next morning. A bag of chips from the pantry had vanished completely. It didn't make sense. The user lived alone. At first, they wondered if they were just becoming forgetful. But deep down they started to feel something much more unsettling, that someone else was inside their home. One night, after hearing what sounded like a soft thump above the ceiling, they finally decided to investigate. They grabbed a flashlight, pulled down the attic ladder, and slowly climbed up. At first glance, the attic looked empty, but then they noticed a small panel leading into the crawl space above the insulation. With shaking hands, they pushed it open. Inside, they found something horrifying. There were food wrappers scattered across the floor, a pile of blankets, empty water bottles, even a small mattress shoved against the corner. Someone had been living there for months. The Redditor immediately called the police. When officers arrived, they confirmed what the user feared. A stranger had been secretly living inside their attic crawl space, sneaking down at night to steal food and water before slipping back into hiding. The thought of how many nights they had slept below, completely unaware of someone lurking just above their head, was more terrifying than anything else. The man was eventually caught, but the scars of the discovery never faded. Because the truth is, your home may not be as empty as you think. Sometimes, the noises you ignore aren't just the house settling. Sometimes, someone is already inside. Late at night, on an empty road, a driver pulls over to help a lone hitchhiker. She seems quiet, nervous, and almost out of place. But by the end of the ride, she's gone. This is the story of the disappearing hitchhiker. A Reddit user described driving home one night, taking a back road they didn't usually travel. It was late, past midnight, and the stretch of highway was completely deserted. That's when they saw her, a young woman, standing by the side of the road, her thumb held out for a ride. She looked cold, shivering in a light dress, her hair matted down as if she'd been caught in the rain. Against his better judgment, the driver pulled over. She climbed into the back seat, thanked him softly, and gave him an address a few miles away. The ride was quiet, too quiet. The driver tried to make conversation, but the girl only gave short one-word answers. She stared out the window the entire time, never meeting his eyes in the rearview mirror. Something about her felt wrong. But before he could think too much about it, they were pulling up to the house she had mentioned. The driver parked, turned around to tell her they had arrived. But the seat was empty. The back door hadn't opened. He hadn't heard a sound. She was just gone. Confused and unsettled, he went to the door and knocked. An older woman answered. When he asked if the girl he had picked up lived there, the woman grew pale. She explained that her daughter had died in a car accident years earlier on that very stretch of road. And ever since, strangers had occasionally knocked on her door, describing the same girl, the same hitchhiker, always vanishing before reaching home. The driver left shaken, questioning what he had just experienced. But he's not alone. The story of the disappearing hitchhiker has been told across the world, with different names and different roads, yet always the same ending. So the next time you see someone hitchhiking late at night, ask yourself, are they really there? Camping alone can be peaceful. The silence, the stars, the sound of the forest at night. But sometimes, that silence hides something else. This is the story of the stalker in the woods. A Reddit user shared that they had gone on a solo camping trip deep in the wilderness. They wanted to disconnect. No phone, no noise, just them and the quiet of the forest. Everything seemed normal at first. They set up camp, built a fire, and settled into their tent for the night. But around midnight, they woke up to the sound of footsteps. At first, they thought it was an animal. The steps were slow, deliberate, crunching in the leaves just outside the tent. But then, the sound began to circle the tent, step by step, round and round. The camper froze. They didn't move, didn't breathe, straining to listen as the footsteps stopped, only inches from where their head rested inside. Then silence. Hours passed before dawn finally came. When they unzipped their tent and stepped outside, the campsite was empty. But in the dirt, surrounding the tent, were bare footprints. Human footprints. They stopped directly at the spot where the camper's head had been. Someone had been watching, waiting. The camper left immediately, never returning to that forest again. Because the truth is, sometimes the scariest part of camping alone isn't the animals, it's the people.